What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Red Kachik, and we got a special show this week. We do have a guest. I'm going to break this up into two parts of the show so we don't bog down the show with the guests. So what we're going to do for this first part, just like all the other podcasts the last few weeks, is we're going to do the course preview breakdown. So dive into the course preview tool and walk through the golf course, all the things you need to know, the things to consider as you kind of review the history here and actually the players, come into play here and what we should be looking for in terms of form. So not too much on the housekeeping. We did hit Joe Highsmith at 100-1. I think some people got him at 110-1. So fantastic win for Fantasy Golf Bag. Excited for that. Wasn't really a sweat for him. I think Ben Griffin was the first live piece, I guess, on Sunday. And then Highsmith just kept cruising, finished strong on 17, and then pretty smooth on 18. So excited to hit that. I know some people, we weren't tracked for the tipping, which is unfortunate, but some people had asked, what kind of tipped you off. For one, he showed up in our values for the FGB sims that power the projection. So that's one part. But the other part was when I was writing my article, if you recall, I had broken down the driving accuracy for specific buckets off the tee. And then obviously the approach buckets, 175 to 200, 200 to 225. He was top 25, I think, in 175 to 200. And he was in the top 15 or so for driving accuracy, 270 to 290. Good form coming in off of his finish. And Mexico just made a lot of sense. Honestly, I thought he was a great fit before assuming he had some decent form off of Mexico. His game translated well. He did putt well. That happens. That's kind of what you need to win. But basically checked three boxes on, what did I want to look for? Okay, he met those boxes. And then our sims kind of automated a little bit with, hey, there's some value here. And then it also aligns with what I was looking at manually. So that helps. Other than that, we can jump right into the course preview. Well, again, we'll be using fantasygolfbag.com. I would encourage you guys to check it out. There's a lot of free tools. I'm going to do a video later on the free stat model. We have obviously the spectrum data, the approach IQ, which was very, very useful last week. It would have been really useful in Mexico, but it was very useful last week. I'm going to use it every week religiously. And then the Stat Model Pro as well. So we will dive into the course preview. And then, like I said, we do have a guest coming on a little bit later. So I'm recording this a couple hours before he joins us. And that way I don't waste his time and we don't kind of bog down the show with, going back and forth on the course. So let's do it. So this week we are at the Bay Hill Club and Lodge for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Fantastic golf course. Very, very difficult fair. I think they've let the golf course get away from a few times in the past, and it's honestly not that hard to do. All the greens are somewhat elevated. They get very, very fast. It says 12 on the stimp meter here. I think on Sunday it is pushing 13, if not faster. They are baked. When we get some hot weather earlier in the year, it's pretty nice right now. I'm going to go to the tournament on Sunday. So if you guys are there, I'll be there. Maybe we'll run into each other. But I think it was like 50 degrees this morning. It was pretty cold for Florida. Don't think there's a lot of rain in the forecast. There's some rain, supposed to be a little bit of rain on Sunday, to be fair. Hopefully that holds off. But it should be fantastic weather. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and talk about the golf course. I love this golf course. That's basically the gist of it. Very long, a lot of different types of shots. This isn't just a long beast. It's long and it demands accuracy off the tee. It's phenomenal in my opinion. So Bay Hill, the last 5 winners: Scotty Scheffler, Kurt Kitayama, Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, and then Tyrrell Hatton. The winning score you can see there, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, has ranged. Last year, Scotty won it at 15 under. The prior 4 winners, starting with Kitayama, was -9, -5, -11, -4. Like I said, The wind a little bit dictates it. Like Terrell Hatton's -4 was a lot of wind driven. I assume Scotty's at -5 was also, I don't recall, 22. One of the days it must have been really tough. But like, single digits winning score is fantastic. It's like kind of everything everyone's been wanting the last few weeks, and we just haven't got it. We thought that was going to be the case last week. And with the rain on Monday, it was extremely soft and receptive, and nap shot 59 on Thursday. They didn't really do too much to the golf course as far as playing. The guys didn't really dominate the golf course for the remainder of the week. There were still some good rounds posted. I think Van Rooyen shot 7 under, or might have came back. I think he shot 6 under on Sunday. But there's like a few good rounds on Thursday, and after that, it was pretty much flat. We kind of just got to throw out that Thursday round, unfortunately. But this golf course through and through is very, very demanding. The rough is extremely penalizing. It's very, very thick. This shows 3 inches. It's longer in a lot of different spots. Very heavy rough. So, yeah, it's a long golf course. Distance isn't really a big deal here. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But it's a par 72. It's just under 7,500 yards. You can see it's similar to last week on the hole-by-holes, where the par 5s is really where you're going to get your birdies. Everything else plays over almost a quarter of a shot or higher over par. So 4, 6, 12, and 10 play a good bit under par. 16 plays over a half a shot under par. And then 10 is the drivable hole, or the guys hit it up there in front of the green and have like 50 yards or 40 yards. So it's a pretty short, forgiving hole. 13 also plays slightly under par. It's not drivable, but it's very short. I think guys have a wedge or less into that hole, and they only have to hit like an iron or 3-wood off the tee. But this golf course on all the other holes besides the par 5s is extremely, extremely tough. They're long. You can see the par 3s here. The average distance is 216. The average par 4, 437. A little bit misleading because there's some shorter holes and there's some very long holes. And then the average par 5 is pretty short, 557. We'll get into course specifics. I brought in a new chart here down at the bottom, which we'll talk about. I think this is going to be key for everybody at Fantasy Golf Bag for the remainder of the year. It's going to be very useful as we break down a golf course and figure out what we want to focus on, especially as we use Approach IQ and another tool in the works for the Players Championship next week, because it's a course similar to last week at the Honda, where specific driving distances are very, very key. So yeah, you can see here, kind of like last week at PGA National, a lot of red. We got an average winning score of 12 under par, average cut line of about just under a shot over par. Again, the driving distance here, we also have these new cool little charts you can see here. We can do driving distance by finish position. So you can see the winner, top 10, top 25, made cut, missed cut in the field. We do that for every single stat outside of our penalty stats, which are kind of custom. So the things that stand out to me most, it's just a very demanding course. And this next part of this we'll talk about is kind of where my focus the majority of my focus will be for this week. But you can see green and regulation is way down. It's 6% under the field. Driving accuracy is slightly over tour average. I should say the green regulation was 6% under tour average, not the field. Driving distance is a little bit down, but again, that's misleading because there's a lot of holes where guys don't have to hit driver. So we'll talk through, because it is important to have distance. It's just more important to be finding fairways. The missed fairway penalty is up. It's about a fifth of a shot. Distance penalty is up. Like I said, there's also a penalty for distance on this golf course, even though driving distance is down. I think that's it's such an important piece of golf stats that it's so easy to kind of gloss over numbers and not understand the context of the golf course, because like a driving distance of 290, I think that's actually less than Honda was, or the PGA National course was last week. But I can assure you, and you can see that in the distance penalty and the missed fairway penalty, driving distance is far more valuable here than it was last week, even though the driving distance average is down. So like it's misleading if you just kind of point to certain numbers. Green regulation from the fairway is down about 5%. That's this middle box here. That just tells me it's tough to hit tough to hit greens no matter where you're hitting it. That's why it's such a demand on finding fairways, but it's still difficult to find these greens with longer clubs, even from the fairway. Green regulation from the rough is 27%. That is down 17% from the tour average. Like I said, it's such a good golf course. You got to have the length. You got to have accuracy. There's no bomb and gouging it around this golf course. Even when Bryson won, there wasn't a lot of bomb and gouging it. Kitayama actually was probably the closest to bomb and gouging it, but it was by accident. He was spraying it coming in on Sunday and just happened to scramble his ass off to hold on to win. But this this golf course, man, demanding tee to green. Birdie or better is slightly down. Again, plenty of birdie opportunities on the par fives. So guys can make, a good handful of birdies, 4, 5, or 6 birdies, if not more, but they're also going to make a good handful, 3 or 4 bogeys, ideally less, obviously, on their round. So that's the spiel. Again, I think this is a great example of this next chart and why I wanted to push it this week. I used it last week in a manual thing that we put in our Discord. But this is kind of where you'll see your eyes hopefully will light up a little bit. Before we get to that, we'll just hit the radar chart really quickly. I added the winner to the finish positions here, and you can see approach is pretty high. Green regulation demand approach is going to be high when you see that. Off the tee, not so much. So again, similar to last week, you can't gain a ton off the tee relative to the field, but it's still very, very important. And then unfortunately, well, I guess not too unfortunately, there's a little bit of putting, but it's mostly for the winner. There's a big jump to the winner. The average winner gains about 5.5 strokes putting versus the top 10 gaining about 3 strokes putting. So again, gaining a little bit of strokes putting to finish in the top 10, that's fine. The guy that wins it is likely going to gain an extra 2 to 3 shots putting. So not really surprising. It's golf. You got to have a guy that's hitting it well, but also makes the putts and capitalizes on what he's doing. So that's pretty much it. Around the green, not so much. It's very tough around the greens, but you're not going to gain too much if you're missing a lot of greens. You can look foolish around here. So yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway here, not to be confused with lead-in stats, but approach is very critical for success here. Off the tee is negated a bit for in-tournament stats. And then unfortunately, putting is kind of a difference maker. All right, the middle chart. So this is exciting. I really liked this last week. Kind of opened my eyes. And like I said, it helped me a little bit with Highsmith understanding where his strengths were for that type of course. So I'm going to talk you through this. The one on the right is the same. So the approach buckets on the right are the same as it has been. So it's basically just breaking down 50 to 125, 125 to 150, all the way up to 200 plus, giving you an idea of what type of approach shots they're gonna face. So this is a very smart tool. I mean, a lot of people offer this, and it makes sense. Like I want to know. That's kind of why we built Approach IQ. Like I want to know specifically what type of approach shots they're hitting. I don't want to just know that he's been gaining with strokes gained approach or spectrum approach. I want to know, is he going to see a ton of 150 to 175? How's he been doing there? That's what I want to know. So the driving distance is the same thing here. So now we have a driving distance distribution. I broke this down into 20-yard gaps. It felt the safest where I could get up to a 330 number. Again, this is for field averages, just to give you an idea of what the overall field is hitting. Again, it removes an outlier, like if Bryson's hitting at 340 and someone's hitting at 260 off the tee, like we're finding the field average. Like the majority of the field is going to find these distances. So you can see here, 270 to 290, we have 5 tee shots. 290 to 310, we have 6. So basically, 270 to 290 is mostly probably drivers for most guys, maybe 3-woods for the longer hitters. And then 290 to 310 is obviously drivers. So we got 11 holes where they're going to be hitting it over 270. There are 2 that are 230 to 250. Again, those are just irons off the tee. There's a few holes on the front that are like that. I think 6 and number 3. 3 might be the 250 to 270 mark. But number 6, and then there's a couple in the back. Obviously, 10 is probably close to that. Let's see. And 250 to 270 has 1 shot. So like when I look at this, unlike last week where there was majority of the shot, it was 10 tee shots, I think, 270 to 290. Here we have 270 to 290 and 290 to 310. So like this isn't a specific bucket to focus on, but like I said, when I look at the driving distance being lower than the tour average, that's misleading because these guys are hitting a lot of drivers. We got 11 holes, 270, 290 or 290 to 310. So driving accuracy for me in those driving distance distributions are going to be key. So that's something to focus on. Now, considering those driving distributions, that's where the approach distance distribution comes into play. And then we'll look at approach IQ here in a second so we can tie this into actual players for this week. But kind of wanted to give a quick overview of why this chart is very important as you research for each and every week. It'll be very interesting to see how this breakout is next week. I imagine it's a little bit more spread out. But again, like just seeing the 290 driving average, less than tour average. Okay, well, driving distance isn't as important. Yeah, it is. It's actually very, very important. And we can see that in the distance penalty and then also in this chart where there's 6 tee shots, basically over 300 yards. Approach distributions are pretty much spread out to tour average over throughout all these ranges. 200 plus is the longest, but most of those are the par 3s. Like I said, I can tell you exactly what the par 3 distances are really quick too. And then you can look at this in the approach IQ tool. So hole 2 is 231. Hole 7 is 199. Hole 14 is 215. And then hole 17 is 221. So like I said, majority of those approaches, like we just talked about, it's let me go back up to it. It's about 36% of approach shots are over 200 yards. 4 of those are the par 3s basically, and then the par 5s. So it basically spread out throughout the bag. We're going to want to focus in on everybody or every range for everybody. Okay, let's dive into the lead-in stats, and then we'll do a little bit of field history, and then I'll bring in the guest in a couple hours. You won't notice the difference because he'll be here in 10 minutes when I wrap this up. But we'll do this first part, and then we'll bring him in, and then we'll talk through the players. So past winners and lead-in stats. I honestly don't know what to make of this because I know what I should expect for this golf course. And seeing players do well here like Kitayama and even Bryson in 2021 wasn't coming in with the best form, specifically with his irons. If you go back, you can see Molinari was losing strokes tee to green off the tee and approach, and he won here. I think he gained a ton putting, if I'm not mistaken. Let's actually go look. We can pull up the leaderboard from 19? Yeah, 19. So if we look at 19, I think it was his putting day, like putting week, putting day. Gained 7 strokes putting. And he gained a little bit off the tee, actually. Pretty good. 5 strokes off the tee. But coming into the week was absolutely dreadful. Even Rory, when he won it in 2018, was losing strokes on approach. So it's tough. It's a really strong field. I won't even talk about Matt Every winning here back-to-back. But like I can focus in on what I know as well. If you look at the average winner over those 10 years, all the stats are positive. But it's hard to know exactly which one was more important or less important based on these lead-in stats for these winners. It's just not enough. Kurt Kitayama's an outlier. Bryson's kind of an outlier. Molinari's kind of an outlier. And honestly, if there's 3 out of 6 that are outliers, then they're not outliers. So not too much to gain here. We know good ball strikers will prevail or should prevail. We know distance is important. We also know accuracy in those specific distances is very important as well. So that's something we will look at this week. And again, just like last week, I'll drop that into the Discord tomorrow, Tuesday, when you're listening to this today. So field history. This is interesting. A lot of guys play this event every year. We have some really, really good course history for some guys. So this is going back through 2016. We have Rory McIlroy with 6 top 10s, Fitzpatrick with 4 top 10s, Scheffler with 3 top 10s, 2 of those being wins. And then a bunch of guys. Fleetwood's got 3 top 10s as well. As far as top 5s, it's going to be Rory, Scotty, and Sung J M, actually. Sung J M has 2 top 5s and then a bunch of top 25s. He might actually be contending for top 25s. Yeah, Sung Jae's second in top 25s here. So Rory's got 8 top 25s. Sung Jae's got 6. Fitzpatrick has 6. Homa's got 5. Chris Kirk has 5. That's surprising. And then Scotty Scheffler has 4 with the 2 wins. Hideki has 4. A bunch of guys have 4 after that. So mainly the big ones is Sung Jae and Rory are loving this course. Really, Rory and Fitzpatrick, if I wanted to narrow it down. All right, I think that is it. I'm not going to dive into the distance differences here. You can see like the accuracy is pretty much close in each of those buckets. Driving distance, again, is down off of the tour average, but it's very important for those specific holes to be be driving it long, especially the par 5s, and then also straight, hitting the fairway. So I think that's it. You can see here, this is always interesting. Like the chart above shows the distance penalty for the course, but down in this chart, hole by hole, you can see the distance penalty for each of these holes. So like, honestly, every single hole except for 5 and hole 13 is like a quarter of a shot difference if you're driving it shorter than the field average. So, I mean, that's a huge difference. So I think that's it for now. What are we at right now? 20 minutes, 21 minutes. Perfect. So hopefully that helps. I'm gonna talk to our guest coming up a little bit more about the golf course just to get his ideas and thoughts on it. But hopefully this helped. Again, it's a fantastic golf course. Hopefully it runs well as far as like being competitive. I think we should see much better scoring, for us as fans, closer to 4 under par as being a good score, which is nice, instead of 10 under par being a good score or 8 under par being a good score. So, yeah, the big takeaway, well, I guess we can really quickly, we'll talk about approach IQ. No, we're not. We're going to talk about that with the guest. So stay tuned. The guest is coming on right now. See ya.